What's up, everybody? Thralls Miller here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have yet another album review for you.
Imagine
that. There's gonna be more. Trust me. This month has been loaded, and I guess it is capping off with a bunch of disgustingly heavy releases that we want to go over. And then this one came up, and it's also disgusting and heavy, and of course we had to go over it.
Of course.
So we're gonna go over the new album from Strigoi, Viscera. This also comes out on the 30th of September, much like everything else seems to be coming out. This comes out on Season of Mist Records. This band formed in 2018 in England. This is their second album overall, and this is actually a tie-in to another band called Valenfire. Now, Valenfire had 3 albums, and this actually features the same members, but they decided that band was over, and immediately, as soon as that band ended, Strigoi started. Now, this band features Gregor McIntosh of Paradise Lost on guitar and vocals. Chris Casket on bass. He is from Eastern Front and actually features Ben Ash, formerly of Carcass. He was actually on their Surgical Steel lineup when they toured live, and actually features the live drummer from Paradise Lost. So, yeah, this sounds actually kind of nothing like any of those bands. This band is essentially a blend of death metal, death doom, crust punk, maybe a little bit of grindcore. My God, it's fucking heavy.
Industrial, black metal.
Pretty much everything heavy ever. I picked up their first album namely because I knew what it was a continuation of, because I really enjoyed Valenfire, especially their last album, Splinters. And the first album did not disappoint, and this one pretty much continues the pummeling. This is, my God, very caustic and very dark, and possibly one of the heaviest things I've listened to this weekend, at least.
Right, I can't say this year, because I can't say that. But it's definitely the heaviest thing amongst the albums we've reviewed this weekend. First off, we'll talk production. All I gotta say is one person, and you'll get it. Kurt Ballou.
Oh my God. Now, first off, I love pretty much all things produced by Kurt Ballou. I'm a giant Converge fan anyway, but when it comes down to his production, man, it is so damn heavy, but it's very rich. It's very full, and it's well done. Drums especially. I don't know if he's like some sort of secret drum whisperer, but he gets like the best drum sound, especially like the snare. The snare always sounds like gunfire.
Yep.
But everything sounds just massive on here. The guitars are fiercely in that HM2 realm.
Oh, yes.
They're so snarly. They're so heavy. They are down-tuned and bottom-heavy, and complement the ultra-sizzly, massive bass underneath
Snarling bass. You can hear that bass sizzle in multiple tracks. The combination of the bass and the guitars together, it's just massive. Just mammoth sound.
I mean, that is kind of what Kurt Ballou does in general, but for some odd reason, like, I don't know, like, this one just sounds heavier just in terms of all the albums that I've heard him produce, and I've heard a lot. This is just such a massive sound, and I think it just has to do with the style, too. This band kind of pivots between 2 styles. Like, they have 2 kind of separate schools of thought, and it's always been an interesting thing, and it's kind of carryover from Valenfire. These guys love doing slow, doom-laden, just swampy, disgusting, bleak fucking songs. They sound like the most evil fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
And then pivoting over to fast, violent, like crust punk, a little bit of grind. It's pretty much this 1-2 punch of just violence and darkness.
Yeah. And the most extreme on either end of the coin. Like, when it's fast, it's crazy fast grind, and when it's slow, you can
crawls.
feel it. Yep. You can like, if you were doing like pushing out of a casket, like, it would be that.
Yeah. But the casket's covered in fucking crazy glue and maple syrup, and it's gonna take some work to push that thing up. This is just a dark, twisted listen. Like, right from the opening track, United in Viscera, single chord chugs that echo through your body.
It down-tuned, just boom. God.
Slow, plodding drums. And this was our first sample of the atmosphere that is all over this. First off, it's immediate. You feel how dark this album is right from the opening. There are samples of, like, fluttering ghostly choirs, church bells, industrial noise, TV static, all blended together to make this just Silent Hill fucking soundscape.
Kind of, yeah. I think these guys would do well to score a horror movie, to be honest. Just, it's so unsettling, and it's all the time. And it's in the background of almost every song, and the chorus, the choir that fades in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like any like empty moment that like, you know, transitions into like say a Death Doom breakdown or the next giant batch of riffs, there's usually something like some sort of thing to complement how just percussively heavy that the riffs are, whether it's like a dissonant melody or, you know, just a weird soundscape. And I don't mean weird in like a pleasant weird, like this album is just dark. It sounds evil. Like, legit, it sounds evil.
It lives under Nick's bed.
It does. Or, you know, it might just, you know, hitchhike underneath John's car on his way home and, you know, crawl in through an open window.
Well, that'll be fun since most of my drive home is country driving, so...
It'll hold on tight.
Right, if I disappear or get possessed, it's been real.
And yet another thing to complement the horrifying atmosphere are Gregor's vocals. Holy shit. Gregor has some sick vocals. First off, he's very clear in his enunciation, which sometimes you kind of wish he wasn't because, man, he is talking about some really, really dark shit on here. But it's very throaty and very raw. It sounds labored, maybe a little bit dramatic.
Gurgled at times.
It's just, I mean, awful, but in a good way. Like, it complements the music. It sounds evil and forlorn at the same time. Of course, you know, him being in Paradise Lost, I thought of, you know, Nick Holmes, which Nick Holmes growls are fucking awesome. Yeah. Whether they're in Paradise Lost or Bloodbath. But here, man, it's like Paradise Lost is depressing and, you know, bleak. It's definitely heavy. And, you know, Bloodbath is heavy, but it's kind of like over the top zombies and shit. Like, you know, that's fucking fun. This is just like cut to the core fucking, this is darkness. This is
evil.
Yeah, this is fucking Damien's bris when he survived the first movie or Up for Adoption. I don't know. It's fucking just dark.
Another thing I like about this record is for 10 tracks, the album weighs in at 46 minutes. Yeah, a few of these songs, Kings of All Terror, Redeemer, Napalm Frost.
I mean, it's literally the combo of the two bands you're thinking of right now.
Yes, literally that.
I'll put up the graphics just in case you weren't thinking of the right bands. You should have been thinking about the right bands.
This one and that one. 3 or 4 of these songs are like no more than 2.5 minutes long, which isn't something you'd think from a project like this, because listening to it, you'd think that it would be, because there's so many doom elements in it, you'd think that they'd be longer songs overall. But let me tell you, in a 2.5 minute song, this band packs more of a punch than most bands do for 2.5 minutes. It goes from fast to slow to doom, and the whole record is just drenched in atmosphere. So even at 2.5 minutes, it's still grossly entertaining and gross.
Yeah. And the atmosphere, again, it's just like inescapable. It sets up songs, it pivots, transitions really well. You know, it becomes like really a big thing you focus on, like almost to the point where the chugs kind of sit in the background and you're kind of wondering what's going on in the background. Like the song Hollow, which might be the heaviest song on the album, in my opinion. Yeah. Flat out the slowest, grimiest death metal on here. But there's a section where, you know, this main riff is chugging along, and behind it, all of a sudden you hear this sort of, it could be an ascending, like, tremolo dissonant thing, or it could be a sample. I'm not sure, but it's a creepy fucking noise.
Yep. And you get a lot of that creepy noise in this. The way it starts out with, like, this creepy, like, man chant. And then you get strings and horns, and then you get a droning female choir, and again, just these, like, ascending, fluttering, just...
It's like a funeral procession for a fucking demon.
Yeah. And then some of the biggest, heaviest, stank-faced, chug-your-balls-off riffs appear in this song. And you're gonna get that a lot in this album, but God, is this heavy.
I have to say, like, they make good use of a lot of, like, single open chord chugs, because there's just a lot of just big, heavy, open chugs that kind of just let them ring out. And granted, if you have a tone like this, you let that fucker ring.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of complementing atmosphere and the vocals on top of that, like, I don't know, like, it just creates this just whole vibe that is all over this album. Towards the end, you get some very grand long tracks, namely Byzantine Tragedy and Iron Lung. Byzantine Tragedy is pretty much like the devil at the fucking pulpit just giving you a sermon over tribal drums and single chugs. And I like the way that Gregor just sort of hams up the performance. Honestly, it reminded me a lot of Jazz Coleman in Killing Joke when he goes on his rants and songs. It follows kind of that same formula too, where it's a long section of a riff that is just kind of played to the point where, like, no, you're kind of, that's the background now.
Yeah.
Let's focus on what the big, evil, scary man has to say. And I don't know, like the whole vibe of it, again, kind of peaks off the evil. But this is kind of where I ran into a bit of an issue in here where some of this kind of does drag on a little bit too long. Like, I love droning, heavy music, but there are sections on here that I think could have, been summed up or transitioned into something else to sort of break the monotony. Iron Lung, while I really like it as a giant, grand, evil closer, it really hangs on to essentially one melody for a good chunk of it. It does break it up a little bit, but again, it kind of drones on a little bit much, and it kind of took me out of it.
But it's also a creepy dissonant melody, and Lord knows I like dissonant melodies.
And it does chug.
Yep, it does chug, and it's probably the doomiest song on here.
It's bleak.
It's dreamy in the sense that it's nightmarish.
Yeah, now like those dreams you can't wake up from because your fucking sleep paralysis demon's literally sitting on your chest. Yeah, it's that kind of dream.
Yeah.
I mean, this is heavy and evil. This hits you like a ton of heavy evil bricks, if those exist. It's probably used to construct big evil castles in like Romania or some shit. And there's even like some industrial vibes on here too, like kind of like Godflesh, if they decided to just openly worship Satan. It's just an all-encompassing, heavy, brooding album, and it's just dark. Like, you legit feel this one. Like, this isn't like, Portal creep me the fuck out and I won't fucking sleep with the lights off for a fucking week. This is just like, wow, I feel just kind of
violated.
Yeah. Wow.
We were talking about it earlier. You get to those creepy choir vocals and you just like, ugh.
And again, that's the weird thing. Like, you hear church bells and choirs, and they are by far the most unsettling thing on metal albums. Because,
I agree.
We have a different opinion of church overall. But this is a fucking monster of an album. And overall, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I really dig this. It does drag on in some spots, but man, when it hits hard, like mainly Hollow. Hollow is a centerpiece of a fucking song. And I love that 1-2 punch again, that kind of grindcore violence meets death doom darkness. The production is fucking wonderful because it's Kurt Ballou and he does a fucking great job like every fucking time. This is an awesome fucking side project for Gregor. Like, this doesn't sound anything like Paradise Lost. This is kind of his own thing. I like that it is a continuation of Valenfire, which I thought was really short-lived. And, I was kind of used to this sound courtesy of them. But, man, this is just the most atmospheric thing they've done yet. And, man, it hits hard. If you're a big fan of, oh, God, let me think here. Neurosis at their most dark and evil. I would still say, like, Dismember and Entombed in there, and Bloodbath.
Garia.
The slowest, most brooding, dark shit you can think of. It's also that. Just check this out. It's a monster of a fucking album.
I'm going to go ahead and give it 4 stars. I enjoyed the fuck out of it. I've never heard Balenfire, which is something I'm going to have to look into.
Splinters.
Although I have heard Paradise Lost. But I mean, I knew once Nick said, hey, you know who produced this album? Think of the heaviest thing you could think of. Kurt Ballou. Regardless of what it was, I already knew it was going to be heavy. And it is definitely heavy. And it is definitely creepy in a very unsettling way. I'm not bored at all by big, like, droning chugs and just... It's the atmosphere. It's the atmosphere that really sells this record, because I think any band can chug and hit their drums real hard, but to create such an unsettling environment for it, too, on top of it, and the vocals that really cut through, that clear delivery really sells it.
Yeah, Gregor's vocals are fucking awesome.
Yeah, but to pack such dynamic into 2.5-minute songs, and then to, again, go from that grindcore to doom to fucking... Blah. This album did it for me, so go get this one.
I mean, I'm ordering it.
Take our word for it and go check it out, because this is surely a great listen and definitely very heavy, and just heavy doesn't describe it.
Yeah.
It's good. I dig it.
If you're a trucker and you have to hit one of those way stations and you're playing this in the truck while you fucking hit the way station, you'll be overweight. It's that heavy.
Yep.
So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there is a link down below to thrallsmetal.com, where there is a link to our Patreon. And while you're there are shirts for sale. We have a podcast, and we are eventually going to add more stuff to it. But we're kind of like behind on that. Right. But we'll get down to it. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that stuff. It is amazing doing this and watching it grow. And you guys are the fucking reason, because you're the one subscribing and commenting and following and all that stuff.
Watching and wondering. And
there's probably a lot of wondering.
I'm sure a lot of you scratch your heads at the end of this video and go, why do we tune into these guys?
Are they wearing pants?
Yes, I'm wearing pants, so that's a good thing.
That's a firm maybe over here. This has been, again, a pure joy doing it, and you guys are the fucking main reason. So, thank you once again, and we will catch you later.